her son Lucas in Mexico. She teaches there. She is there. She has a chihuahua. No, she's a chihuahua/Yorkie. Such a yucky little dog. And that dog is the best right now. It's honestly, yeah, in air conditioning. Oh, this is the gazebo if anybody's interested in seeing it. This is the gazebo that they put up at the shooting range. It was from Wayfair.
Hey guys, we will now open the July 20th, 2023 council meeting.
Councilmember Howe.
Here.
Councilmember Hyatt.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Worth.
Here.
Councilmember Wright. Here. Vice Mayor Ripple.
Here.
Mayor Applejack.
Here.
This evening we have our prayer message by Councilmember Worth.
You bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we're very grateful for your love, your compassion for others, in the opportunities you give us to lead. Heavenly Father, we also ask you if you could guide over us, that way we lead appropriately, and address the issues and concerns of our citizens here in Clarksburg. But most importantly, Lord, we ask that you could guide us to be a reflection of your Son's love in the world, Jesus, and to share that love with others and our fellow neighbor. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening we have a special presentation by Thrasher Representatives Dan Farrell and Joseph D'Annunzio.
How are you? Mr. Farrell?
Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Good to see you. Good to see
Picture.
you. Somebody will be.
This is, do you want to give us background? Give the background on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, awkward, sorry. This year, Thrasher is celebrating 40 years of business. With that, we have developed an initiative for 40 weeks this year. We are giving $1,000 to a charity of our client's choice. Each week, we select a client that we work with, and we ask them, hey, please pick a charity near and dear to your heart, an organization, nonprofit, anything in your communities that you would like to give $1,000 to directly. The city of Clarksburg was actually selected 2 weeks ago, and we mailed the check in, but we wanted to come and do this because you guys have been a client for so long, and you are such a dear client to us. We're excited that you were selected. Dan?
Well, for most of the 40 years that Thrasher's been in business, we've had the pleasure to work with Clarksburg. Personally, I've worked with mostly the sanitary board from the collection system wastewater plant for almost 20 years. I can't believe I'm getting that old, but yes, I have. And we've enjoyed the partnership. And when the group came up with this idea of giving back a little bit to our clients, I thought the idea was great. I'm so happy to be here with Clarksburg.
Well, we thank you and we appreciate this, and this is going towards the Mayor's Youth Council.
Yes.
So thank you, thank Thrasher Engineering, and hopefully we'll continue to have our relationship for the next 40 years.
I hope so. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry, will you take care of this cash app?
Endorse.
Approval of the minutes of the regular session of June 15, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Approval of the minutes of the special session of July 1, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Petitions, communications, and public hearings. Vicki Bland, 209 Broadway Avenue, wishes to address the council concerning barking dogs defecating on the property, stagnant water in the pool, rats, garbage, etc.
I have more room, I wrote more. Okay, I was here last month about the barking dogs. It's getting out of hand. The dogs running around are getting worse. They're chasing people on bikes, backpackers. They're out all night long barking and wake you up at night. Okay, me and this girl got into it because her dog barking for hours. She lets it bark for hours. Actually, I have a tape of it barking. One time it was for 7 hours. I can't take no more. I want to move out of my 42-year-old home that I've been there because of these people. And I'm like, I don't want them chasing me out. We've seen rats, a roach. He has cabinets in the backyard. He cut down a tree. He's going to burn them. Okay, you've got me with COPD. You've got my neighbor with stage 4 lung cancer. The smell comes into our homes. City code enforcement was working with him. He tells him he works 15, 16 hours, can't do nothing. They let him go. He did clean up a little bit. I call the cops about the dog. The cops tell me call animal control. Animal control tells me call the cops. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So it's like I said, homeowners, taxpayers, we have rights also. We shouldn't have to listen to this. We should not have to put up with this. Or they should be unenumerated, these dogs. And I don't know what else to say, but thank you for listening.
We'll have the city manager look into this.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Kevin, and I don't want to butcher this last name, 355 Buchanan Avenue, the condition of the courthouse and surrounding area.
Thank you, City Council, for letting me address you on this. We've been here 13 years in West Virginia. We've been in Clarksburg with a business in downtown Clarksburg for 7 years now. Stonewall Coffee, most of you know it. We lived above our business for years. My family knows downtown Clarksburg personally. We now live in Judge Maxwell's old house. Clarksburg has the greatest courthouse in the nation, in my opinion. Show me another courthouse with 2 copies of the 10 Commandments in front of it. We have 2 copies. In front of the doors, besides those, there are memorials of those who have served and died in our military from West Virginia. We also have a problem that has not been solved, unfortunately, in the 13 years that I've been here. I personally worked at the mission. I support the mission. Many of, Lou is a good friend of mine. Truly homeless, destitute, needy people I want to help. The mission is not the problem, especially the direction they're going now. I also want to have a successful business in downtown Clarksburg. It's not easy. I've been told you can't have one in downtown Clarksburg. Part of the problem for businesses is when our courthouse building, the building with the 10 Commandments, the memorials, the grand entry door, when that courthouse building has stuff piled on it, luggage, personal belongings, clothes, dogs, garbage. When we have courthouse electric covers ripped off and people openly using them during the day right out front of the courthouse to charge their phones, and they leave trash behind daily. Every morning, I see it in front of the courthouse, our courthouse. I see that every morning. And do you really expect Nate to clean it all up? I don't blame Nate. I don't blame the homeless, actually, though they are the source of this. Someone is not doing their job, or someone hasn't been empowered to do the job needed to be done. We have signs. There's signs all over. You can see the signs. There's probably 4 or 5 signs, but no enforcers. Signs, in my opinion, should be taken down. They're tacky. This is our beautiful courthouse. We don't need these white and black signs posted up around there. Last Friday, 4:10, courthouse is still open. The courthouse is still functioning. I see a typical scene of 2 homeless with a dog and stuff plugged into the courthouse, electric sockets, covers ripped off. They're right there in front of the courthouse. I know these 2 homeless people. I know them. They are bad news. Not all the homeless people are bad news. These 2 are bad news. I go to the 2 security guards right inside the door. I say, what do you do when this happens? What do you do when these guys are plugged into the courthouse? All their stuff is here. What do you do? One said, we call the city. What does that mean? I don't know what it means. The other said, there's not much we can do. Not much we can do. Now, I want to say something about the police. Every time I've called the police, they've been on the spot. They're there. They're doing their job. But they're not around the courthouse hardly ever. But when I call them, and you can see all the times I've called them, they come and they respond properly. And I think they do graciously, and they take care of the issue. I go out there, and this is not an isolated issue. This happens over and over and over and over and over again. I go out in front there, those people that are sitting there plugged into the courthouse. I say, you can't be plugged in there, guys. Guess what they do? They unplug and they walk away. I walked back in. I said, hey, I took care of that problem for you. It's not my job to do that. It's not my job to regulate what happens around the courthouse and to keep the courthouse clean. Whose job is it? I don't know. I don't know whose job it is. Yeah.
Your time's almost up.
Okay.
Wrap it up, please.
Okay, so are we going to empower somebody to take care of this job? That's my big bottom line question. Our courthouse is beautiful. It should be considered sacred ground. And right now, it is not being treated that way. And I would love to see it treated that way. Thank you.
Chief, do we have jurisdiction? That's county property, correct? Do we have jurisdiction? We do?
Public building, I don't know.
Can we not,
We've asked to turn them off.
yeah, can we ask the county commission to turn those off?
We can turn it off.
Can I say a quick thing about that?
Yes.
I don't think the answer is to turn off something that we originally put there for a good reason. I mean, we put those there for a reason. We didn't put them there to be exploited by homeless people. So I think rather than turn it off, let's just enforce it so it's not being misused.
All right, thank you.
Tommy Lopez wishes to address the council concerning Spring Avenue.
Well, welcome new council members that I have not had the chance to address formally on Spring Avenue. I don't know how much that you 3 are aware of what's been ongoing for the last 2 years, okay? But the issue still remains unresolved, okay? We had a meeting here the day after the election, okay? During that meeting, multiple issues were brought forth by your own employees, violations of your own code department. The fact your city engineer admitted you have so many violations that you can't even pay to fix them all. The list of errors, lies, and things that came out of that meeting are tremendous. Yet, there still has been no opportunity for any formal action, informal action. I don't know what way that this council was updated on what happened in that meeting. And I know everyone's seen different things from the past of the last 2 years, but as this situation stands, it is still grossly unresolved. I don't see anyone speaking of it. As I've said previously, I'm tired of coming to talk about it. At the end of the day, everyone here knows the truth, okay? And, I did have the opportunity to speak to the city manager, and I'll next address my thoughts on the FOIA thing being presented this evening. Also, with due respect to the city manager, to altering any process in which the public is allowed to come here and speak is absolutely inappropriate. The limiting of any FOIA process is absolutely inappropriate. This city's history of the last several years of residents and people being suppressed to speak, people not getting information, things done that have been deplorable, is so documented it's not funny. People elected 3 new people so that there could be transparency. Okay, and to play a drill here as to what the city manager is suggesting should happen, and tongue in cheek, I think she's doing a wonderful job. Okay, I've had the opportunity to talk with her, but the thought that someone could come in on Monday with an issue and have that issue discussed and the stuff get brought to council so that you can be educated beforehand is not able to happen. Using my own personal situation, okay, the city manager's overwhelmed busy, but I emailed her, couldn't get with her. I left several messages with her, couldn't get with her. I finally came here and sat and waited on her, and she took the time to squeeze me in for 15 minutes. We went through a variety of things, including Spring Avenue. And I told her that we needed to have more conversation because you need to see the truth of all this. And, you know, she told me that she's busy. She would please send me an email. Okay, I'll work you in. Well, that's been a week since I sent that email. I haven't been able to get with her yet. So under the model that's being proposed, that you could show up here Monday with an issue, smile and, hey, you know, I need some help with this and yada, yada, yada. We can get everyone talking all together, and, you know, that isn't able to occur based upon my actual experience. Okay, it's just simply because everybody's overwhelmed busy. Okay, it's not an issue of laziness or anything else. Okay, but the simple reality is that's not able to happen, and that hasn't happened with me because I've already done it and I'm here with this issue that we still can't talk about. So stifling the public's ability to speak in any way, shape, or form, I really would encourage you not to do that. I'd also like to ask you formally to add the Spring Avenue project to the next agenda for the next meeting so that the issues can be formally discussed. And again, back to the issues that were brought up during this meeting the day after the election. It needs addressed because there's many things that have to be handled. Additionally, the school situation. Okay, I'm encouraging everyone here to please immediately work with the Board of Education. We saw they're closing a school potentially in Norwood, they announced today. We know the truth. They're going to have to consolidate. They're going to potentially take city schools and move them outside the natural boundaries of the city. It's not their fault. It's not their choice. The school board wants to work with us. They can't help it. But you all need to work with them immediately to start our development plan of all these things that we're talking about. We need to do as the city manager recommended. We need consultants. We need to lay out a city plan that follows all these things that we need to do and then advertise and promote ourselves behind it. But it has to start with the schools immediately, everybody. We have to get with the Board of Education. It's going to change our entire community. Please, I implore you to do that. Thank you. Ding dong, my time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Amanda Bailey.
I just wanted to talk about the old Morgan School. If it's not up to code and it's not being utilized, you know, if we're able to be a part of that, to get it restored, to get it up to code, so that we can use it. I mean, I think we were part of Tommy Thomas's first DARE group. I was. And I know how much he loved the kids and, you know, wanted the best for all of them. And I believe our school, you know, can help his legacy live on. We have plenty of programs. You know, Mr. Jackson talked about, you know, the addicts and the opioid crisis in our community. You know, the programs that we have, our Will to Work program, we hire homeless people. We hire veterans. We hire people who just get out of prison. Anybody who needs a second chance, that needs a job to keep them off the street, to keep them busy, we offer that. So it's not just a school. I want to share something with you. Some of our courses are health and fitness, where we teach nutrition, physical fitness, exercise, mental health. We have a critical thinking course. It teaches problem-solving strategies, logical reasoning, critical thinking. We have an emotional intelligence course where we teach self-awareness, self-management, empathy. We have building positive relationships and effective communication skills, all of these things to keep people out of the streets, off the front of the courthouse steps, busy and active in our programs, adults and children. So, if there's something that we can do to share the Morgan School, until we can even share with them until they're able to find a place. We don't want anybody to be, if people are using that, let them continue to use it. But we would just like to be a part of it. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegation. City report.
So we'll start with the city parks, so the splash zone and mini golf. There's been large crowds and private parties have increased since the 4th of July holiday. There was a mechanical issue, it's now been fixed. And there's been some landscaping work done for the mini golf. Veterans Park, there's the 3-phase electrical panel boxes are expected to be here in the coming weeks and installation to be completed at the amp. Country singer Tracy Lawrence held a concert on the 7th of July. Christian recording artist David Crowder is in concert Friday, June 21st. The maintenance continues the upkeeps of park trails, pavilions, and fields. No major projects are currently happening. And a letter was received to proceed with the pickleball court project from John Gary. Clarksburg City Park, there was a replacement pipe put in. The Frank Gloria Field will be busy hosting a couple of events this coming weekend. You can find all that information on the website. The Pony League will begin this fall, and maintenance continues on all the parks, trails, pavilions, and fields. Code enforcement. So Code Enforcement Office issued 15 building permits during this period, with a total job cost of just over $557,000 and total permit fees collected just over $7,000. They fielded 217 phone calls, condemned 1 residential structure, and had 10 work orders for board ups in residential properties. They also inspected 171 condemned and vacant properties, responded to 3 CAD complaints, 21 inspections over the last 2 weeks. Animal control had 62 calls. They've issued 16 entry letters for condemned property and pulled 10 off-premises advertising illegal signs. There's been 21 new work orders for high grass, rubbish, and garbage, and 16 orders from Public Works. They updated the C Quick Fix complaints as much as possible. Completed plan reviews for 5 Below, Sam's Club, and Sam's Club on Emily Drive. And the city engineer continues to work with all city employees and projects on new items. Economic development, they compiled downtown historic district property information. They are now completing a full business inventory and property database, which will be put up on the City of Clarksburg's website. They explored WVU resources for GIS mapping, including land use, law clinic, and John Chambers College for Business and Economics. Assisted with a city working group to review opportunities to engage the local and national film industry. That's a new initiative we're putting forward as a city. We participated in the Clarksburg Uptown meeting and will be reviewing the Main Street On Track organization and assisted the Empire Bank property auctioneer with details regarding the municipal and state level economic development programs. The finance department received the second quarter sales and use tax from the state in the amount of $1.3 million. This is the highest quarter received since the inception of the 1% sales tax in 2016. It is a 5% increase from last quarter and a 3.5% increase from the highest quarter prior to this. The fire department is concentrating on ground ladder and aerial operations. Firefighters that attended the Lines Over Ladders training event will now share the training with respective members on their shift. Congratulations to Jeremiah Hastings, Justin Mayle, and Jeff Sanders for completing their rope rescue technician level training. And a round of applause goes out to the probationary firefighter Scott Bexfield for winning the hot dog eating contest on First Fridays at Mixie's Lunch. That's 2 years in a row. for the fire department. Police department, Patrolman Cordell, Lloyd, and Christian Nutter have been accepted to begin training at the West Virginia State Police Academy in August. The police department is currently in the background phase for new officers with expectations of hiring 4. The National Night Out Against Crime will be held on Tuesday, August 1st from 6 to 9 p.m. Everyone is welcome to attend. Lieutenant Richard White has completed 20 years of service with the police department, and Sergeant Ethan Walker and PFC. Tasha Cox has completed 10 years of service with the department. Congratulations. There is a number of projects throughout Public Works, replacement of sanitary sewer lines, storm sewer main lines, inspection of lift stations, maintenance to lift stations, a number of sewer calls, weed killing, patching of streets through different neighborhoods, picking up of yard waste, and repaired 3 traffic light issues. The Robinson Grant has several events that are on sale to the public. So all the dates are listed, but some of the highlights are the Disney Pixar Inside Out movie, the Steve Vai concert, the Jaws movie, the Allman and Frank Ryder concert, Mountain Stage concert, the Born and Bred concert series, the Zach Williams concert, the Blue October concert, John Angotti and Friends, the Mountain Craft Film Festival, Gary Puckett and the Union Gap concert. But of course, if you can go to the robinsongrand.com, it's all listed there for further information. For wastewater, so the discharge monitoring report will be submitted for the month of June with no violations. Parts are in for the main water pump repair, and they're hoping to get it assembled shortly. They had their 2-year West Virginia DEP compliance inspection at the plant. Everything went well. And July 18th, they had their annual West Virginia DEP inspection of our pre-treatment program. Again, this meeting went well. The second phase of the thickener rebuild begins in July in about a week. And please, a reminder to the public, do not flush baby wipes or flushable wipes down the drains. They do not dissolve and can cause blockages in the sewer line as well as damage to the pumps.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, amend planning and zoning code. Consideration of second and final reading and public hearing of an ordinance to amend the planning and zoning code sections 1305.01, 1327.01, 1327.02, and 1327.08 to define and include zoning district requirements for brewery, brew pub, distillery, mini distillery, micro distillery, off-premises consumption, alcoholic beverage sales, land uses, private club, tavern, and winery land uses.
We will now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against may do so. We will now close the public hearing.
So moved.
So,
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Land Reuse Agency, consideration of second and final reading and public hearing of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to add Article 179 to create a land reuse agency.
We will now open the public hearing. Anyone wanting to speak for or against may do so at this time.
I just have a question. When we go to the microphone.
Please.
The Land Reuse Agency, I know some folks had posted on Facebook regarding some issues and concerns, and there was a question of whether or not there was going to be a consultation with the city attorney to figure all this out. Has that taken place? Will that take place?
Richard?
So I know the question is,
I don't understand the question.
well, certain individuals had said that the land reuse may have something to do with like taking away personal property, not allowing citizens to have that first right if they're neighboring or adjacent. I know there's certain ways to do bid process and all that, but there was some question as far as
We covered
what
all
it's.
this in the work session.
Okay. Well, I wasn't here for that.
I understand.
So it was covered,
Yeah, we discussed all that.
and someone will post that to allow other people that don't show up here or don't pay attention to work session.
I'm
Like
not
the
sure,
elderly?
I mean, you want me to answer his question?
I'm just saying,
To
as long
answer
as
your
it's
question, yes,
clarified.
it's live streamed, and then our communication and media personnel puts it up on our
Okay.
website, and it's on YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch it. All those
So the
questions
burden
were
falls
answered.
on them if they didn't
Yes,
pay
sir.
attention. Gotcha.
We will now close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Mayor, on this one, I'm in favor of it. But the question was, the appointments are in there, correct, Ms. Hunt? And
Yes. Yeah, I think we voted for that last time.
okay, all right, well, I wasn't here, but I just want to make sure. But I just, me personally, in the future, on new ordinances, when we create new boards, commissions, I just prefer that the appointees not be in the actual ordinance itself. But that's just my personal belief, just that it's not always documented who's in there. But I think we ran into that problem before from me watching from outside in. Some other boards that were created named those board members, and I think that just creates an issue. But I have no objection to this. But I would also encourage the city manager and John Whitmore probably to also pull the old home rule file. There is some good pertinent information in there regarding how we can also capture vacant property above and beyond, and probably mesh very well with the land use ordinance. That's all I have.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
FOIA request, consideration of second and final reading and public hearing of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to create Article 117.03 to set forth procedures for the submission of Freedom of Information Act FOIA requests and repeal section 777.06.
We will now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against may do so at this time.
Yes, I am against this, and I would like explanation, specifically what is in the change that's being proposed. Could someone answer that?
So, Annette, can you explain the first part? Because that was actually changed before I was here. The part that I added on was we matched the rates to what the county rates are.
Yeah, it actually increased the rates to coincide with what the county offers. And the policy is a good bit like the counties, how they currently handle FOIAs.
Which is,
Well, they have a process, more of a process. I still think, and this is up to Richard, but I still think if somebody just sent you a letter as a FOIA, you'd still have to respond to it, regardless of what format it was in, if it was on the form.
so that's uncertain at this point, really. So we don't have a definite answer one way or the other. So in the absence of a definite answer, we're going to move forward still? Is that?
There's just more guidelines really to follow, but it's not, I don't think it's going to change the overall outcome. I mean, you're still going to, if you present a FOIA, we still have to respond within
But the
5
difference
days.
was, the differences would be what?
Would be the price. One thing was the price because we were,
And what else beyond,
Undercharging.
would anything else beyond the price?
No, nothing major, no major changes. There may be a form in here if you want to use it versus your own letter. But other than that, they'll be handled the same manner.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Now close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Discussion. Sorry. I did not realize this mirrored the county, but so in essence, all we're doing are increasing the fees. And so I don't know why we just don't amend the ordinance we have that set the fees in place versus another ordinance.
I can ask the lawyer that. I was told this is,
There was no clear ordinance on how you deal with a FOIA request.
I thought we were talking about fees. There's state law how to deal with it.
That's correct. But if you look at the county, if you look at every state agency, they all have policies in place as to how their FOIA process works.
Well, I can tell you from my personal experience within the last 3 months at the county, I hope we don't follow that policy.
We do not follow the county policy.
We're going to mirror it now.
What?
We're going to mirror it now.
No, that does not mirror the county policy.
Right.
Bits and pieces of, bits and pieces of.
That was not, it does not mirror the county policy. It mirrors the state's insurance agency, I believe. I can't remember which one it was, but it's not the county per se. But
So-
all it's doing is setting forth the standard procedures following FOIA requests and how you deal with those. That's all it's doing, and increasing the fees, which we don't currently have any of those policies in place under ordinance.
I gotta agree with Marcia. It seems spelled out pretty clearly in the agenda packet.
Yeah, and I don't know where this idea of form comes from. The county does require a specific form. It's very clear, and we wrote it specifically, that the only requirement is it has to be in writing. Under FOIA statute, it does not have to be in writing. However, most of the state agencies, if you look at, they are required to be in writing. So the only thing that we're really doing here is clarifying that we're going to create a FOIA email for it, and we're going to require it to be in writing. There's no specific form that it has to be.
So if I send police chief a FOIA, is it denied because I didn't send it to the FOIA email?
You have to send it to the director of records under FOIA request,
Who is the director of records?
the city clerk.
So is it to the city clerk or to the FOIA email?
Under US mail, it's to the city clerk. The FOIA, I think the intention for the city is to have the FOIA be able to be responded to and directed to the appropriate entity within the city who's going to gather that. I think it's intended to make it easier for the city to direct that to who it's supposed to go to. And because it's one email, you can have multiple, that it has it easier to be forwarded to the appropriate parties.
Thank you. My apologies. I missed the last meeting. Just trying to catch up.
So I had a question. Does this sort of streamline the process? Like, does it make it easier for the citizen?
In my opinion, from the citizen perspective, it doesn't really change anything.
Okay.
Other than it lets them, if they look at the ordinance, it gives them procedure on how to do it. It gives them more information on what they need to request in.
And do you think they would, with that procedure, they would get that would help them get more of the accurate information that they're requesting?
Yes.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
Martin Howe,
No.
Will Hyman,
Aye.
Mark Jackson.
Aye.
Wayne Worth,
Aye.
Hattie Wright,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Riffle.
Aye.
Mayor Maffetone.
Aye.
Solid waste containers. Consideration of second and final reading and public hearing of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg modifying sections 958.02 and 958.03 of the codified ordinances regarding solid waste containers.
We will now open the discussion of public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against may do so at this time.
I'm a little concerned, like, what exactly is the ordinance pertaining to? Like, me personally, I have a garage, I have a parking pad in front of said garage, my can sits in front of the garage. Now, if I'm to move that, as the ordinance states, behind my property, my house, or out of sight, that's going to result going up a hill. I got a bad back most of the time. I mean, that's not feasible. And my neighbor's got even worse health problems, and he keeps his can. It doesn't obstruct anybody's sidewalks or anything like that. So I'm just kind of curious what the goal of this ordinance is. Is it to penalize people for just leaving a can where it's sat for several years, or where you go?
So the purpose of this ordinance is to make sure the appearance of neighborhoods remain clean and
Okay, so we're worried about
appearance.
appearance of neighborhoods.
So
Yeah, we
that-
have cars parking on sidewalks. We have roaming dogs that attack children. I know, because my kid was attacked by one. We have, no offense towards the homeless, we have issues with them, but we're concerned about trash cans.
So I would just encourage you, for any concerns that you have, to contact your elected officials and bring those forward, and they will discuss it at a future work session.
I'm gonna say I'm against that.
I just want to, first of all, thank council and city manager for talking with Public Works and just finding out what changes would have to be made for an ordinance to move this forward. I'm all about city pride and neighborhood pride, and how the lady here was talking about having a rodent problem by potentially having garbage in front of the streets for long periods of time. I think this is a good thing to eliminate that, to just show pride and beautification of our great city. I'm just driving even in the city on Milford, and if people are trying to run, I see a few runners, and sometimes there's garbage that's there for the week, and they have to, go into the street. It's midsummer, 90-some degree, and hot, smelly garbage. No one wants to come in. If you're visiting the city or maybe planning on moving here, potentially buying a home, or everyone's talking about bringing in business, and you're seeing this right in our main roads, that's something that's no one wants to see. So I commend council. I really hope you vote for this because it's all about a few minutes of pride and making a little bit better and a safer, cleaner environment for our city of Clarksburg. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? We will now close the public hearing. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on this. So in a situation where someone lives on the hill and there's a steep hillside, and it would be difficult for them to pretty much pull their trash can all the way up, 20 flights of steps. And that's, and that's a lot of homes in Clarksburg. My question would be, would that person still be penalized if they have that on the sidewalk and that's the only other place that they could physically keep it?
It's not about penalizing people, it's about keeping the city presentable and beautification of the city. You really don't want garbage bins on the side of the road 7 days a week. You want them off to the side of the house, behind the house, or in your garage. Like, it's just not appealing. If everybody did that, imagine what the city would look like.
And I understand that. I mean,
But I don't
I
think
get
you
that.
can go and identify, how do you go and identify people who don't have to have it and people who do?
Well, I get it, but if you live on a hillside like this and your front door is 20 steps up, okay, and then as you get at the base of those steps, you just have a sidewalk and then a road, how is it humanly possible to be able, if you have a disability of some sort, to drag that trash can up the steps?
Well, if you think we need to make exceptions for people, seniors or people who have some sort of disability, that's something, if council wants to consider, they could. But if you drive around, there is homes that have garbage sitting out, falling out of that all the time.
And I get that, and I get
that's
that,
the place.
and we want to address that and remedy it, but it seems like that this ordinance is kind of like a one size fits all, and there's going to be people that are probably penalized because they have a disability and they live on an incline.
And I didn't capture the whole ordinance, but is there not an ordinance now, 958, I can't read it, I didn't capture it, 95803? Does that not already dictate what time cans can be set out the night before and what time they have to be brought back in? If so, why are we not enforcing it or just amend that ordinance to do something different than we want to achieve? I don't know. But I agree with you. I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
And going back to Sean, his issue, if you can, are we worried about visual sight of the can, even if it's in your yard, or is it just on the sidewalk? Because I think that gets to the point, but because I would be in the same boat. I don't know where to put my can. My can's where I put it. It's by the garage, but you can see it from two different directions.
Right.
But I'm not gonna build something to cover the can.
So to address that question, that wasn't the intent. Like, if you have it beside your garage, you've moved it off the side of the road.
Okay.
That the intent is to get it off the sidewalk and right at the front of the road, because when it's at the front of the road, it should be there for garbage day. But then it should be moved back, like you said, beside your garage. Yeah, you can still see it, of course, but you know that it's not beside your garage to get picked up for garbage when it's time to move it.
So
it's brought
the
back
ordinance
out.
that we currently have in place addresses that, correct, Mr.
It
Marsh?
does not.
Does not state the time to put it out or put it away?
It deals with the time to put it out, it does not include the time
To
to
put
burn.
it away. There's a bit of a gap there.
I think we need to get away from the idea that code enforcement is out there nitpicking, patrolling the city for trash cans. I mean, they've obviously had bigger fish to fry, in my opinion, but I think when there's a huge issue where there's a garbage can with 20 trash bags piled around it, and there's animals climbing out of it, there's people rifling through it, I think that's probably time to consider that we have a problem with that certain situation. But, I agree. I mean, it's a difficult situation for everybody to be put in. I mean, obviously, Wayne made a great point, Sean, after what Sean said. Not all of us can be fortunate enough to be able to drive our trash can into a garage or around the building. But I believe the intent, and that doesn't really mean much because it's ultimately up to code enforcement to enforce it. But is to make sure it's not obscene with animals and bags piled 20 feet tall. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid personally. I think there are going to be some issues with people not being able to get their garbage cans up around the building. But I think code enforcement has the ability to say, I think they're doing the best they can here. And, obviously it's not obscene at the moment. So I think we're not going to go write them a ticket. But I can see where it could become a gray area, in those regards where, the code enforcement officer's having a bad day and they say, well, I'm going to write you up for this. So I think we need to be careful a little bit about it. Ultimately, I supported the ordinance the first time around, and I believe I'll support it again. I'm just concerned that we may have some issues like what Sean mentioned. I'm hoping we don't.
We solved this problem before the green trash bins from Waste Management came. That's what changed everything. And really, why complain about the sidewalks when you can't even walk on the sidewalk because all the trash bins are on the sidewalk? So, there's an issue. I think this will help a little bit. I do understand the situations, but
I think it's common sense. If code enforcement's driving down the street, there's a trash can with 50 bags and, like I said, animals climbing through it, whatever, that's an issue. If there's a trash can tucked neatly away, or, beside a garage door, or maybe out of the way, where people can move freely, as you can see on the agenda, move freely through the sidewalk, I think that's okay. I think we can live with that. But, that's going to be ultimately up to code enforcement. So.
And I get that too. And believe me, I'm going to support it. I'm going to support this, this ordinance, because I think the majority, of the ordinance, will address, the problem of people just piling their trash and stuff. But I just don't want to have to come back, and revisit this ordinance or in the future. And, because someone comes with the complaint and says, well, the only place I could put my trash can is right here, and I got cited because of it. That's my concern. I just hope that this doesn't turn into something punitive. And
I think it's part of the process though, right?
Right.
We try things, we get it wrong, we fix it.
I get it, and that's why I'm going to support it. I'm just saying, I think we have to really look at those situations, because I just, I would hate for someone to come back in here and say, well, during public comments and say, well, I was cited and I have a disability, and I don't know. That's something I think we should look at, and maybe that could be something, if there is some sort of complaint, the city manager could look into too, to see if, how that's going to be, enforced if someone that has a disability gets a ticket, or someone that, if that's the only place they could put their trash can because they live on a hill this steep, I would just hope that would be taken into consideration, because in legislation, it usually isn't, so.
Well, if code enforcement has discretion, and we trust our people that we have in code enforcement, we have to trust them to use that discretion. Individuals talking about, a bad back, health issues, things like that. I think that this is where we need to trust the people that we have working in our departments, to use that discretion and make good decisions.
Sir, did you want?
The only thing I want to think is I had a neighbor who had surgery, and he called Waste Management, and they came up and got his can for almost 2 months.
Well, that's
from the side of his house. Took it. So there may be.
So that was a comment I was going to make. My mother, she was elderly, and she had a sticker on the house, and they went to the back of the house and brought her can up. So, there's ways that, Waste Management will, they'll issue a sticker and then they'll go and pick the can up, so.
They created the problem, Waste Management with all these bins. I understand it makes it a lot faster for them, but
right.
It didn't, I don't know how it,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Dogs, consideration of second and final reading of public hearing of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to create section 507.17 of the codified ordinances to prohibit the keeping of noisy dogs.
We will now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against may do so.
Speaking for this one, because I feel it piggybacks on the other issue, which is kind of the aggressive dogs. Usually a barking dog is an indicator of somebody neglecting their dog, and therefore that dog becomes a problem dog. So, yes, I'm for that ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone else? We will now close the public. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
How's it going? So there's the ordinance 527.04 that you guys have in place for animals and birds that has to do with frequent, long, continued noise and shall disturb the comfort and repose of any person in the vicinity. That kind of duplicates that, doesn't it? Just saying, it sounds like you guys are singling the dogs out versus, it could be any animal barking. I mean, it doesn't have to be just a dog. And with regards to the dog being aggressive, I definitely think that is something you guys need in place. But I think there needs to be, and I sent Haiti and I sent Will an email, and I think I sent it to you, Jim, also, with regards to the dogs barking. There needs to be a time limit. I definitely agree that dogs barking uncontrollably is a pain for anybody that's trying to sleep at night. I know we had a situation where I had a guy welding at 4 o'clock in the morning and that finally went away, but I think there just needs to be a time limit. They need to say, like, if a dog goes out and they're barking because somebody's around the property, does that really make them annoying?
So when we had our lawyer research this noisy dogs, jurisdictions are actually getting rid of the time limit, and they're leaving it up to the discretion of their animal control officers. And that's why it was written in the way without a time limit.
Right, but if that,
Because it wasn't from the research we did, it wasn't working to have a specific time limit on it.
I got you. So is Steve Cocker going to come out at 4 o'clock in the morning for his complaint?
You have to call, and that's why we have an animal control officer.
Right, yeah, I doubt that's going to happen. I'm just saying, if a neighbor complains because a dog goes out and somebody's around the property and they bark, and then they call and complain, that's going to tie the police up for unnecessary tasks that they need to be doing other things. Same way, if anybody else is going to come out. I don't think anybody wants to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning about a dog that barked because somebody was around the property. I don't think I was pretty detailed. Haiti and Will both agreed with,
Yeah, I think his point is just that sometimes there are reasons why your dog is barking. They're very protective usually. So his point was just, if your dog barks for 5 minutes because a group of people just walk by, is that an issue? Or, should there be a time limit? How do we,
I think that's part of the
It's the
discretionary
discretion.
piece of
Okay.
it, because if you put 5 minutes, like you said, if it's 5 minutes of straight barking and it's someone trying to get into your home, should you be calling in? Probably, but if it's 5 minutes of straight barking just because they like to bark, and it's 5 nights in a row, then maybe it is a nuisance, and it really becomes a discretionary issue.
Okay.
Okay, we'll now close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll say.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Discussion. We'll all get around here. Yeah, I did field a question from Mr. McWilliams there. And, I looked through the ordinance and I noted that the police or animal control can't take the dog in the noisy dog situation. Now, in the dangerous dogs, they can. But from what I understand, in the noisy dogs, you can only be fined for it. So it's, I don't think it's a case of, animal control is going to come take my dog because it's barking for 24 hours a day. I had an issue with some neighbors that had a dog, and I couldn't go into my backyard. And, you know, I live in Northview and our homes are basically right on top of each other. Every time I went into my backyard, their dog barked and just barked at me and bark until I went back in the house or they brought their dog in. And it was a little frustrating. And, you know, I could see a situation where that could be enforced on that. I'm the type of person that I try to avoid getting the authorities involved unless I absolutely have to. But you know, I think in this case here, I don't think it's it comes back to, like I said, the solid waste containers. You know, it's going to be up to the discretion of the animal responding officer, whether it's the police or the animal control officer. So, you know, I think if somebody's around your yard, walking through your yard, doing something in the back of your yard, and the dog is barking, I think you could demonstrate to the responding officer that, look, there's people back in my alley and they're causing my problem. But you know, if you have a situation where the dog's just constantly and you could probably you could demonstrate proof to the responding officer if you're calling them in that case, and you can prove to them that the dog has been barking for 72 hours straight. You know, we don't know what's going on, or maybe it's a situation where they're not feeding or giving the dog shelter or water. So I mean, I'm going to support this. You know, I understand we're getting into this area where it's going to be up to the discretion, like Mr. Jackson said, of the responding officer to make a determination. And, you know, sometimes people aren't going to like that response. Unfortunately, we're all human, and sometimes mistakes are made when it comes to that kind of stuff, but we got to trust these people. That's who we trust to enforce these laws. Again, I'm going to support it. I hope that people can get some rest, and I hope it doesn't create any issues going forward.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to echo Will, and I think I learned from the discussion of the other ordinance that, I mean, these ordinances are not perfect. You know, I mean, and I get it. I got the same email. You know, when someone walks by your yard or they're in your backyard trying to steal tools out of your shed, I mean, yeah, your dog's going to go out there and they're going to warn you. They're going to bark. But I think most of this, you know, does address, you know, an issue that needs to be addressed, and so I'll support it, you know. But yeah, it's not going to be perfect. I don't think any of these ordinances are going to be perfect, and I do have to, you know, we do have to trust the discretion of, you know, of the staff that, you know, that the city hires and goes out and addresses these things, and if it becomes a problem, then, you know, that's what the city council is for. You know, people could come up and air those grievances, and then we could address those at that time. But, you know, for the most part, I think this addresses something, you know, addresses more something that we need to address than the other things that, you know, may come up. So I'll support it.
And I see almost an appreciation by most neighbors that a dog would be barking because somebody may be in the alley. And I think a conversation, whether it's why code enforcement shows up or just between the neighbors, that there's a mutual, you know, appreciation of that dog barking. And I think that conversation will happen in most instances like that. So, I mean, I'm definitely going to support it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Consideration of second final reading and public hearing of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to amend section 507.18 of the codified ordinances to prohibit the keeping of dangerous dogs.
We will now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against may do so at this time.
I know you're probably tired of speaking, but this is an ordinance that I feel strongly about, as I had stated earlier. My 16-year-old son, while volunteering his time at a rummage sale over on Duff Street, was viciously attacked by two free-roaming animals, and he ended up having to have stitches, and he gained function of his arm after several days, but he had some tingling and other medical issues. And it turns out that this person has a known history of having complaints against this animal. So, I mean, I think an ordinance like this is well past time. And, you know, just what I would say is, if the issue of, like someone had mentioned, animal control and whatnot, possibly adding an additional 1 or 2 officers per want to cover shifts in the animal control department, because this isn't just a 9 to 5 type situation. You know, there's times where I'll come out at like 2 in the morning and I'll see like stray dogs running down my street, you know. Now, to mention that, like the other day, my son, he's 6 foot, 6'1". He was scared shitless to get out of the car because there was this old toothless dog because he had gotten attacked. And it's like, you know, just putting that out there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Sorry.
We'll now close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Just a question. If there are animals that have had complaints prior and then another complaint comes in, are those complaints going to be added on in consideration to determining that this is a vicious animal?
Yes.
They will? Okay.
Follow up. So we're cleaning up the current ordinance 50718, but in the resolution, it does say, and maybe Marcy clear this up for me, but the city is not equipped to address the legal determination whether a dog is dangerous. Then under 50718B, the animal control officer is designated as the person responsible for initially determining if probable cause or not. So who's determining if it's dangerous or not?
The process is going to go to magistrate court, okay? Under Supreme Court case, the only mechanism to declare a dog, let me back up. West Virginia's code says you cannot keep a dangerous dog. It's a misdemeanor crime. Further, under the dangerous dog statute under the code, the magistrate court or the circuit court has the power and authority to order that the dog be euthanized. The Supreme Court has been clear that a city, a municipality does not have that power and authority. Hence why the current statute is problematic, because it gives the city manager the power to order the dog euthanized. The logic is that the city has this whole system in place where it declares a dog dangerous and then creates this muzzle situation. And I think that the advice is we shouldn't be in that business, because if we say that dog is dangerous, we've essentially assisted somebody in committing a crime under state code. So it's a criminal complaint, or it's a criminal code section. So therefore, to make that initial determination, a police officer has to make that criminal complaint to make the probable cause. So that's why you're making that initial determination, and we're assigning that to the animal control officer in conjunction with the police department to file that criminal complaint, and that starts the process across the street.
Okay, so is the wording bad under D?
My computer died, so I'm not sure.
What's that? I didn't hear you.
Died.
Huh?
His computer died.
Better get a charger.
I forgot the word.
I'll read it to you. If the animal control officer determines that the dog is vicious or dangerous, then the animal control officer, in connection with the police department, shall file a criminal complaint. So again, the animal control officer is determining the dog to be vicious or dangerous.
That he's making a determination of probable cause.
Then it probably should say that, correct? Or, because, I mean, otherwise, we're going right against what it says, and whereas, to me, right?
Probable cause will be determined by the magistrate, right?
Well, but D doesn't say that. The animal control officer determines that the dog is vicious or dangerous.
Probable cause isn't addressed until you get to the court hearing, I believe.
Yeah, I can see what Councilor Howe is saying. The intent of it is to kickstart that process. Our animal control officer has to say they believe it's dangerous or vicious to actually get the police to send it to the magistrate.
Okay.
That's what that means. However, I can see what you're saying with the wording, but that's the intent of it, is so that our police can't send it to the magistrate without our animal control officer saying, I believe this dog is vicious or dangerous.
Okay, then all I would ask then, I think the word determine needs to be removed, because under state code, the West Virginia state court system is the sole system that can determine if a dangerous dog is to be euthanized. But I again, the word determined to me is just, I don't like it used. To me, you're letting believes, I don't know, I don't know.
We use belief today.
What's that?
We use belief today.
Okay.
Or you can use your evidence in their vicious behavior.
Evidence shows.
What's that?
But the way it actually works is, a police officer can do the vicious dog without the animal control.
Correct.
But since it's his job and he gets complaints, we'll use his information as more of a witness to the incident. And we'll take the complaint to the magistrate, and the magistrate will determine if the dog is vicious. He can euthanize the dog, he can muzzle it.
Contain it.
Order muzzle and determine dangerous to the,
I think our old ordinance had also said something about you can ask that the dog be fixed as well, so I don't know
That's something the magistrate
if, right, which would flip over to the magistrate then.
Maybe for the future, we get a red line copy of the ordinance that gets changed, so we know what's being changed.
The old ordinance, I believe, was repealed.
Yeah.
This is complete, there's no red line because it's complete.
Okay, I didn't see red line.
Yeah, it is completely new.
So my question is, if law enforcement can go out there and deem the dog dangerous and issue a criminal complaint that goes to magistrate court, then why do we have to wait for our animal control officer to determine that?
Because he's usually the one that goes to the call.
Okay.
It's after hours.
But it's after hours.
Respond.
Right.
They're going to make that
determination.
They're not going to need the animal control.
Right.
I mean, it's a wording thing. I think if you just change it to, if he determines there's enough evidence of this dog being vicious, just change the words, I think will fix it.
So you want to make a motion to amend? That would be the change of wording.
Mr. Howe, you want to make a motion to amend?
No.
No? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
New business, streets and sidewalks. Consideration of first reading of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to create Article 562 to ensure free and fair use of streets and sidewalks.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Discussion. What brought this one about? Just so we get a history of it.
So this is coming from the numerous complaints and people that have come into my office. And just talking when I'm out I've talked to a few businesses downtown. I actually talked to the gentleman that spoke today as well. To help clean up the streets, to ensure that the police can help ensure the city is a safe city. That's where this is coming from, in a very positive way.
Okay.
So this would
So-
essentially, oh, go ahead.
Good.
This would essentially keep people from like loitering and having their personal belongings, like you mentioned, on the courthouse steps, and so it's just a matter of the police telling them to move, essentially.
Pretty much.
Okay. Yeah.
So Richard, did loitering, and I want to ask him this because, and I'm a supporter of this, don't get me wrong, but did the Supreme Court or somebody take loitering off the books?
There is lots and lots of discussion about loitering and the constitutionality of it. We're taking the approach that this is loitering plus, because if you look at it, you have to, I'd say in conjunction with something such as breach of peace, physical harassment, and other types of, it's something above lounging around. So kind of this kind of loitering, hanging about, lounging around, those kind of things. And this requires something in addition to that, and some type of obstruction or breach of peace. It's the best, it's how a couple of the other cities have dealt with it. It's always a problem. Anytime you wander into loitering ordinances, it is a risk. But that's how the other companies have been dealing with, and that's why we added it. It's not just idling or lounging, it's breaching the peace, creating disturbance, obstructing, molesting, engaging conduct.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Property lease, consideration of first reading of an ordinance of the city of Clarksburg to lease property situated at the corner of South Third Street and West Pike Street.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. On this one, who has final authorization, say, on the layout of the property prior? Are we going to see it before we lease it, or releasing it and hope for the best?
In regards to the engineer study?
I don't know. There's nothing in the packet. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so I haven't seen the engineered study yet. This agreement was in the works before I started.
That's why I'm behind.
Mhm.
So do we have, does council, is it privy to the engineering studies, schematics, anything such as that?
Well, I know they mentioned the last meeting about the number of spaces, right?
20 parking
20,
spaces?
and so
With
many
one
handicap.
Green space, trees, all concrete,
The wind
the
sculpture.
world.
Concrete and the wind sculpture has been
And whose wind sculpture is that?
ours. It's the one that was bought
So we
by the
donating it?
beautification committee.
We're just giving that away?
Yes, apparently that was part of the agreement. Yes, sir.
Can I get, and again, I'm not against the project. I'm all for helping down businesses, but again, if we're giving away a city asset, be it's a, whatever that is. I think, again, I don't know what it costs, but we're giving away an asset. I don't know, did the previous council vote to give something
I
away?
don't think we're giving it away because we still own the property that it'll be on, right?
Yes. It's
So
still
they're just leasing the property that
So
it'll
we're
be
loaning
on.
it.
We're loaning it.
Okay.
Yes, and they have a year to complete it to actually have this, otherwise it comes back to the city. Right now, it's sitting in a box in one of our buildings. It was bought by the beautification committee.
Unbeknownst to council.
So they had that discretion?
It was
Don't
that
get
and the
Obviously.
gazebo.
Obviously.
I posed this question to the attorney earlier, and I was curious what would happen in the case that the owners of the property would sell the property. Would that convey to the new owner? Would it go back to the city? Is it transferable?
It's pretty standard, the current proposal for assignment is pretty standard as you see in commercial leases, which is, there's no assignment without landlord approval, but landlord approval shall not be unreasonably withheld. So at this point in time, if the property was sold, they could assign the lease to a new company, new third party, and council would have limited ability to stop that.
Would it still be for 20 or whatever?
Yeah, it wouldn't change the
years
terms.
remaining on the lease?
Everything else would stay exactly the same. So, for example, when you have a year to build a parking lot. If they sell a property and assign a lease at 11 months and they haven't built the parking lot yet, no one gets more time for the parking lot. It's the same terms and conditions. The only other thing that we did isn't completely standard, but we oftentimes include it, is if it's going to a related company, then there's no need for a sign. And one of the reasons we did that was because they're gonna hold it, my understanding, in a separate LLC, not in Roy Ruff's gonna be held in another LLC. And you regularly see that companies move things around in different LLCs, same principle.
I'm just going to say personally that this has been going on for the last couple of years, at least talk of it. There was talk about what that property was going to become. Ultimately, that didn't happen. In our last meeting, the committee that was destined to make that happen was dissolved for a multitude of reasons. I'm not going to get into them. But the only people who have spoken to me about this have been negative. They're not really supportive of the property going to the owners, being leased to become a parking lot. And I can't say that I disagree. Today I was approaching City Hall and came through the corner of 3rd Street and noticed that there's a historical marker there for the old city building. And I made a reference to a song earlier about paradise and being torn down, and although City Hall is far from paradise, but it seems I'm going to chalk it up as a failure. I mean, of the city to not act and move on what the intention was to make that property what it was supposed to be. But I do, honestly, I do support the lease. I think it's the right thing to do because we couldn't figure it out. Maybe somebody else can. So if anything, I would like possibly to revisit it maybe and just sell it outright at auction. Let the free market handle it. That's my opinion, but I don't think that's going to happen tonight. So I think we should just move forward.
Anyone else? We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Consideration of a resolution to determine appropriateness of installation of speed humps adjacent to city parks.
So moved.
Second.
Did the park board request this issue, or do they haven't? I haven't been to a park board meeting yet. I've missed my tonight.
I requested a traffic commission meeting for another item, and this got brought up. It was the first time the traffic commission had met in over 10 or 11 years, and this was actually part of the agenda. I think I'll also first state I think it's a good idea. I believe that if we are going to start with speed humps anywhere in the city, that's where they should start. But that is where the discussion started, and I'm glad it's finally on the agenda.
Yeah, we discussed it before the traffic commission. I think maybe around the same time, and then that Councilman Hyman got that going. But yeah, I mean, I brought it up as well. Speed bumps been kind of a discussion. No one has heard the speed bumps in the city or locations, but I just thought, especially with summer starting, and if we are in favor of speed bumps overall, then I think it'd be a great way, an efficient way to get started is putting where they're needed most, where we know the need is there, without doing traffic studies and things like that. So now it's here. Well, not all the way here, but close.
Should we have locations?
I believe the first idea was Harrison Street. And there was talk about Golf Avenue as well.
This is just to determine if the appropriate is correct. This is not.
Correct. So there's three major things we have to look at. I found it here. It tells you in there the three major things we have to look at to make that determination. And we didn't have the ITE guidelines until I believe Annette's going to download it, bought them yesterday and downloaded them. So all this is doing is saying, directing the city to look, based upon the guidelines, which of the parks would even be eligible for this. There are certain ones that we wouldn't have eligibility for anyway. I don't believe you can put a speed hump on Route 20 in front of the Clarksburg Park. But I think all this is doing is directing.
Nor is it in city limits, but go ahead.
Well, there's that too, but it's also a DOH holiday. But the point is, I think all this is doing is directing the city Public Works Department to start working on determining which, if any, of these parks will be eligible to put money in. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Consideration of a resolution to approve revision to the city budget for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kim, do you want to speak on this, please?
I just had to make a correction to what was in your packet. I had to change line item. Other than that, there are just a couple changes on this first revision. We just had to do it by July 30th for the carryover number for the state. And that's all we have right now, but there'll be another revision forthcoming with some more changes to propose.
Thank you. Anybody have a question?
Kim, if you don't mind, and it doesn't affect the way I feel about the budget, but can you get a breakdown of all the fund, or really just the COVID funds and the other federal funds that were provided to us, of how they were spent, and then what the remaining balances as well, if I could get that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
And then one more.
Okay, go ahead.
And then, do we have in the budget now, are we allocated for any new employees? No.
Not in this group budget right now.
Okay, so at some point in time, this council will have to obviously do another amendment to the budget, but we are advertising now for a city attorney, is that correct?
Yes, so to clarify, there was new, in the current budget, like not here, but the actual budget that was passed, there was a couple of new positions. There's been some moving around in departments and adjusting positions, so Kim did a document for me showing the cost savings, so it won't be costing anything more in the city budget to bring on a city attorney.
But we still need to create that line item for a city
Yes,
attorney.
and that's coming once everything's complete. It's not quite complete yet.
ARPA funds, Kim, sorry, I had to bring blanks. A lot of driving.
Stay home once in a while.
Yeah, because you're right.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Council comments?
Who wants to go first? Down there. Okay, Will. Wayne said it was you.
Oh, okay. I'd like to thank everybody who came out and spoke today. It was a very thorough meeting. I didn't think it would last this long, but here we are. I think the word of the day was intent. We talked a lot about intent. And I'd like for us to think about that going forward, about the things we propose and the ordinances we draft and the ideas we have for the city and its citizens. And just keep in mind that what they say about the path to hell. So let's all remember that, and hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll do it again next time.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jackson?
I would like to say thank you to Thrasher for the donation that they gave. I want to make sure we get that in there. And also want to address that, we are going to put some things in place. We're going to make sure that we address this homeless issue. It's going to take some time. We didn't get in this situation overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight, but we are going to work tirelessly and get this thing taken care of. And I would also like to offer my congratulations to the officers for their time completed with the police department. Their loyalty and dedication to the citizens of Clarksburg is big, and thank you everyone for coming out this evening.
Mr. Howe?
I'll concur with the thank you to Woody Thrasher, Clay Riley, and Angelica and Dan over here from Thrasher Engineering. I think it's very gracious of them for all the service they provided the city to pay back a little bit. So that's greatly appreciated. One thing I would like to have brought up to council to get approved is, and it was open prior to you being here under the former city manager, and I believe former council, I'm assuming, but the union contract, to my understanding, was opened, and nothing's happened with that. So if you could get with them ASAP and get a decision if we're going to close that contract so council can approve it, so that can be updated. That's been out there for over a year from my understanding, so that needs to be taken care of. And other than that, thanks for coming out tonight. Enjoyed everybody's presence. Chad, welcome.
Don't we skip you?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Councilman Ward?
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's good to see people up there. You don't really get to see a lot of folks coming up and speaking during public hearings, but that was nice to see. We want to thank Thrasher Engineering for the donation. They really give a lot back to the community. I could say that, I've witnessed that. So it's really nice that they, are going to help our mayor's youth council. And other than that, I'm super excited and happy that, we're one of the few municipalities in the state that has a land reuse agency, land bank. That took a while. There was a lot of thought, and it was well crafted, and there was a lot of discussion and a lot of good questions from the community too, between the first reading and the second reading. And a lot that I learned too. I thought I was pretty educated on land banks, but became more educated. I do like the whole the whole fact that we, the whole right to first refusal process, and, where we could acquire properties, that were not sold at a tax sale. And I like that, not only because, it gives the city an opportunity to try to buy up some of these properties and stuff that could strategically, be used for redevelopment. But I also like it because even in the state code, it says that, that 90 days before the deed crosses over, to the city, the adjacent property owner could purchase that property for what the city, bought it at a tax sale. So I do like the fact that, adjacent property owners definitely have an opportunity, even after it wasn't sold at a tax sale, to have first dibs on that. And I like the direction too, and during the work session, the attorney spoke a lot about it. I do like the direction of how, the city would like to strategically, work with adjacent property owners to try to, sell these properties, these vacant lots, to adjacent property owners. So I think it's a win-win, and I do like, I do like Martin's experience too. I think with the current home rule, with the land bank, I think we could do a lot of things. Now, we're going to have some challenges because there was a U.S. Supreme Court decision that was made, on tax sales and stuff out of Minnesota. But the state, in the state auditor's office, in the legislature, I think, or, by the next session is vigorously working towards, trying to make our land banks, here in West Virginia very successful. And if that happens, I think you'll wake up 10 years from now and you'll see a different Clarksburg, because that's pretty much what happened in Huntington. So when they started this in 2009, I think. So I'm very happy that got passed, and that's pretty much all I got to say. Other than, the city manager's report is amazing. And this is a credit not only to, Ms. Fell's, attention to detail, but also, our city employees are really out there making a difference. Because when you have a 6-page report on a city manager report, there's a lot being done, and you know what? I thank every city employee from our police department, our fire department, public works, code enforcement, you name it, for doing what they do. And this is always the best part of my, of the council meetings is these city managers report, because you really get to see the good work that our employees are doing. So, and that's all I got to say. Have a great weekend.
Ms. Wright?
Yeah, I want to also, I agree with Councilman Worth about the city manager's report. Just a lot of positives in there. Congrats to the police officers who reached 10 and 20 years. That's really great that we're able to retain good police officers for that long of a period. I also want to thank everyone who came out and spoke tonight. And I wanted to bring attention to a downtown event tomorrow, actually at Gore Lux. They're having a wine tasting from 2 to 6 p.m. There's going to be 20 different types of wines. Oh, I'm sorry, Saturday. I'm thinking it's Friday. Saturday from 2 to 6. And they're going to have cigars, wines, and other local vendors, I believe. I also think there's a couple that I've heard of adoption events happening Saturday. So it sounds like there's a few things happening this weekend. So if you can get out and support those, I would encourage you to do so. So thank you guys. Have a good weekend.
You got to say my title and then, thank everybody for coming out. This is a meeting. This is really exciting. Discussion. Voting for, against, this is how it's supposed to work. Everybody said government moves slow. Well, it looks like it's moving a little bit quicker than slow. So thank everybody for pushing for that. Thank everybody, the staff. I want to welcome Chief Kenny back. He's back on light duty. Some say he was on light duty before he left, but he's back. So welcome back. I'm just really excited about this meeting and everybody's, attention to detail and questions, and the city attorneys, on it with responses. And Just really excited, so, that's all I got. Everyone have a great weekend.
Thank you. My turn. It's really nice to see the positive attitude up here. You know, it's not always going to be a 7-0 vote, but I mean, it seems like it's lighthearted now and nobody's under pressure, and I appreciate that from all of you. Ms. Bell's doing a great job. If you see something, say something, folks. You've got to call 911. Can't do anything if you don't pick up the phone and call. Thanks to Thrasher for the check. It's going to go towards the mayor and vice mayor's youth council. And we appreciate that. And we've had a good working relationship with them for over 40 years. The ADA sidewalks, I don't know who this company is, but these guys they're doing an excellent job. They are just moving from West End, and they're almost through town now, and I think they're doing a wonderful job. Thanks to Wayne and Will for the cleanup under the 6th Street Bridge, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Also, I would like to have on the next agenda, discuss about work sessions. I don't know if everybody likes this format, or if everybody would like to just go to a one night, a different night instead of before council. It's kind of hard for me sometimes to get off of work, and I think we should discuss that. So I would like to have that put on the next agenda, please. And I want to thank everybody for coming out and have a wonderful weekend.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you.